welcome to the weekly show of What is School For? This show is really inspired by my interview with Seth Golden. So on this show, we interview parents, educators, entrepreneurs, and students. We come here, we discuss, debate, and disrupt education. I'm so infinite, so excited for today's interview. And we are all in for a treat. And we are talking about something very interesting. You probably don't run into families like Tressa's family a lot on a daily basis. So today we are discussing how to homeschool on a bus. You heard me, on a school bus. And they are a family of entrepreneurs. They have 4 children. And I think you guys also have a few pets. So I'm really curious about how they are doing this, how they are managing everything to homeschool their children, to run a few businesses as entrepreneurs. So I'm super excited. My guest of honor, Miss Tressa. Is an entrepreneur herself and is the co-founder of Soy Clever, a candle making business, and is a proud mom, and they homeschool their children. And so we are live on LinkedIn. We're also live on Facebook and on Periscope and on YouTube. So let me know in the comment section below where you are joining us live from, geographically and social media wise. I love our global community. And Wednesday's show, we had people from 11 countries. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So let me know where you are joining us from. And Miss Tressa,
hi,
our mom, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be here, and I love what you're doing. I love everything about it, and I'm just blessed to be on this show. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you, Desmond, for joining us from the UK. And so share with us, wow, like school bus. This is fascinating. So what inspired you and your husband to decide to convert a regular school bus, everyone, a regular school bus into a home? So what's the inspiration behind that? So share the inspiration, share the story with us.
Sure, absolutely. So it was my husband's idea, actually, to go tiny. He had been trying to convince me for quite a few years, and we moved from a 3,400 square foot home to a 78 passenger school bus. And I was not ready for it at first. We watched a bunch of tiny homes. I thought they were really cool, but the idea just didn't hit me until last year. We were given an opportunity for our candle business to become national sponsors for a company. And that meant we would have to travel and go to different shows and set up. And we looked at each other and we're like, okay, we're trying to get out of debt. We have this huge mortgage and we have student loan debts to pay back. How do we do that, but still enjoy quality of life and travel and reduce our means of living? And we just started watching videos one day, and we ran into a show called The Bus Life, and they are a family with 9 kids on a bus in one car. And they became really our inspiration. And we just started watching. We're like, well, if they can do it, then let's try it. And it just clicked. And at that moment, it made sense and the timing was right for me to go ahead and get on board. And we decided to sell our house and to use the profits from the house to pay cash for everything, for every part of the build. So we don't owe anything on our bus supplies, no credit cards, nothing like that. So everything is paid for, and we pay a very low monthly rent for the land that we stay on. Compared to the mortgage. And so now we're on track to pay off of our student loans, which will take about 2 years. But that's with an aggressive plan that we have in place. So we're really excited to hit that. So that was our motivation.
That's amazing. So how long did it take you guys to complete? To me, this is a huge project. Do you guys have any mechanical engineer background?
I do not. Like, I had to learn how to do hammer and nails and everything. But my husband, fortunately, his father was gracious enough, who has an engineering background and did woodworking for a long time. So he had the construction skills necessary. And my husband also helped build homes. So we had that going for us. And then we had, we're very good friends with my ex-husband, actually. So we have 5 kids. We have 4 girls together, me and my husband. And then we have 1 boy. He was my oldest. And we have such a good working relationship with Brad from Optimal Plumbing that he did all the plumbing. So where we didn't know for the different resources, like definitely plumbing on a bus, we reached out to our contacts and our resources. And it became like this community involvement of people really wanting to be a part of something unique and something that they could also get their hands on and get away from, technology a little bit and just really kind of put to and develop something and see it come to fruition. So it's really neat. And we're very blessed to have people to help us pick up on the things that we didn't know. So
that's incredible. So I wonder if you guys encountered any like social pressure. To me, this is a pretty radical idea, right? So
yes.
did you guys run into any social pressure from like friends, families, just like kind of society in general?
Yes. Half of our family thought it was really cool because of their lifestyles. And the other half, including my mom at first, when we told her, she laughed and she thought it was a joke. Then when it became serious and we bought the actual bus and we took a picture in front of the bus, it became all so real for her. And when our house went up for sale, she almost lost her marbles. And I love my mom and we have such a good relationship. When we went down there a couple months ago to show her what we had completed and she was able to walk through it, her view changed drastically. And so even though it wouldn't be a lifestyle for her, what she did recognize and she could understand then why we were doing what we're doing. And it made sense. And because we're putting ourselves so much further ahead than we ever could have been with a mortgage and just lots of bills, it really kind of just put everything into perspective and she looked at it from a different angle. And we've had that from friends too. We have people that just smile and they say, you're crazy. And we have others that are like, this is so awesome. Can you help us with our future build? And, absolutely, we're willing to help anybody. And it's being part of the schoolie community, as they call it. People who live on school buses, they're there to help each other and they don't expect anything back. And that's really a neat community to tap into because where we ran into issues, they were there to help us because they've been there and done that. So it's nice to have that.
This is I have so many questions. Everyone, thank you again for joining us live. If you have any question related to their lifestyle and how they balance everything, whatever you want to ask, so leave your question in the comment section.
Yes.
So Tressa, you have 4 children, right?
We have 5.
Share with us kind of 5.
Yeah. I know. And just one more. After 3, it's like, whatever. Yeah.
I first thought 3 because I saw a picture of 3. I was like, no, 4. And then I saw another picture of 4. Oh my God, 5.
They just keep coming. Yeah. 5 total. Yep.
Wow. Okay. So how share with us, like, how do your children like approach this? Or maybe even like a typical day, like a day to day, and how your children feel about this, from being like a home inside a house to a school bus.
Yes.
What's their sentiment? Yeah.
They have been troopers, and I think also it's because it's age related. So to kind of give you an idea, our oldest is 11 years old and he just hit middle school, and then our youngest is 2.5. And they're very close in age. So we're talking about, 24 months to maybe 2.5, 3 years apart at the most. And so that really helps because children that young are still they have a huge imagination.
That's right.
They get motivated super easily. They really look up to you as role models. So for us, it was important to take them on this journey, to be transparent with them, tell them why we were doing what we were doing, include them in the build, which they thought it was so neat that they were able to build their own bunkhouse, their own bathroom space, hang up their little organizers, any little part that we could include them in. It was important because it helped them adjust too. So that was crucial for us. And so far they loved it. In the first week that we moved in, to them, it was like, oh, this is so cool. We're camping out. And, they made little fort tents with their blankets across the bunks. And then about probably week 3, I think my smallest one came to me and she said, you could tell she was adjusting and she got a little sad because they went from a massive home to something very small. But what's great about us being in a small space is they're outside more often. So they, anytime, even if it's not the optimal weather, they get to play outside almost every day, unless it's just torrentially downpouring. And they get more experiences that way. And they're not in front of, screens or anything. We love technology for learning, but what I don't want to do is make that a babysitter. So getting them outside is been great. And that oftentimes is what happens. You have an appreciation for nature and everything because you're getting outside, not because you're just cabin crazy, but just it's a different lifestyle. And they've done great adjusting to that. And they love it now. And they love telling people about it.
Oh, it's so true. I interviewed another person on my show, and his specialty is to train children to cultivate their social skills through outdoor play. So I think there's a very tight connection between outdoor activities and their overall emotional social skills. And no wonder, I think as children spending less time outside, we started to see more and more like social, emotional, and even physical, issues. So I love that, because the insider is smaller, they are spending more time outside. Yeah. And share with us some of the difference, because you also have older kids and they probably have like better memories of their life when they were in a big house and now in a small one. And so what are some changes that you notice in the older kids? And so share some with us.
Sure. So because we moved into the bus before it was completed, meaning like doors weren't up for like the bathroom transitioning into the bedrooms, we had blackout curtains and everything. And that typically most families that move into their schoolies is how they do. They're basically in the middle of a construction zone. So for my two oldest, that was most difficult because, they're more aware of your privacy issues and things like that. That was a huge transition for them. And for me as well, because I veer towards conservatism and not respect. So I had a difficult time too. So when the doors went up, I was just like, but my son, especially since he goes from, he still has a home. His situation is unique because he still goes to his dad. We split the custody. So he has the traditional home. And then on the weekends, he comes with us, and then extended weekends to spend most of the time with us on the bus. And he sleeps up front. So he's got this whole bedspread, and he likes it because that's his partition, because the rest of the bunks are in one location. So when we moved in, it was important that we had that separation of space. And it took him a while to kind of transition to that, but he loves it. And he loves telling his friends, and his friends are like, what, you're on a school bus? How is that even possible? And for them to visualize that is very difficult. So we are going to do an open house where people can kind of walk through. They didn't kind of see, because for me, it was difficult even on paper, knowing what it was going to look like. And it changed so many times during our build, the blueprint, over and over and over again.
I know. I was actually literally hoping last night to actually host a live interview.
I know.
So you guys can see that we are not lying to you. They are indeed inside the school bus.
Yes.
I can't wait to see the tour. So you also so share with us about your kind of education and parenting approach. So some of them you homeschool and some of them go to a traditional school. So share that approach with us.
Sure. So my oldest son does go to a traditional school, and it was an adjustment for him because he came from a homeschool-based curriculum to traditional public school. And that was a hard hit for him because in some areas he's not challenged enough. And then in other areas he's kind of behind. And because there's such a large amount of kids in the classroom, it's difficult for the teachers to be able to catch all of that. So, he's doing better this semester, but his first semester was difficult. And as far as our 4 girls who are homeschooled, they are doing great. And they constantly, the first time I tried, and I should have known this wasn't going to work as entrepreneurs, we tried to have a very regimented schedule. And I tried to basically mock the way the school classroom was. And I don't know why. I think just in my head, I had to do that to kind of seem credible. And what I found out very quickly in the first month of homeschooling is that does not work. And the reason why we're homeschooling is because we want to break the idea of the fact that school has to be a certain way or even certain times. So we So we frequently fluctuate our schedule. They still get all of their core subject studies in, but they may do some on the weekends. They may do some in the evenings or earlier than most schools start. And that's all dependent on our family business because they are also legal owners. They learn a lot through the business that we have. And I kind of merge those two together to teach them. So, for example, money and finances, my 4-year-old may not know multiplication, but she can add money. And she knows when she's supposed to get paid. She understands interest rates. She understands loans. And I didn't know that until I graduated high school. And that was because I had to learn it the hard way. Because when I went, there was no there was no class that offered finances or accounting or anything like that. So when we got out of high school, me and my husband included, it was a difficult transition for us. And we made a lot of mistakes that I think a lot of young adults do because they're just not prepared for what they need to be prepared for. So we want to put a stop to that.
Wow, so many great points. I want to unpack this a little bit. So first, I just love how you mentioned, every kid cannot have their own routine. Some of them, they do this in the morning, in the evening, they have their own schedule. I think that is an ideal way to learn. When you look at, because for those of you who don't know, I actually taught in a very traditional classroom at a few different universities in the United States for 10 plus years. And when you think about traditional school curriculum, we are forcing our children to show up at 9 a.m., for example, to learn this at this hour, and we expect all the children show the same amount of interest in the same subject matter and learn the same way and do the same homework. And the more I think about this, and the more this model is so broken to me. So you have a few children. So do they all learn the same way, or do they all learn very differently? Do they all share similar interests, or they have a wide range of different interests?
That's a great question. So they are all very different. And I have two that I would say are more traditional workbooks. So my son who goes to school, so even though he's having a difficult time transitioning, I think he'll be okay. But we do supplemental homeschooling when he comes home on the weekends. My oldest daughter is very good with, if you give her, for example, her weakest subject is writing and reading. So for her, I can give her workbook sheets and say, I need you to complete this, and she'll do it. Now, for my other younger girls, and it may be because it's age related, but one I know for sure, that's just not her style. If you told her to write the same letter 20 times, she'd look at you like, you're crazy and I'm not doing this. And she has done that before. So what I've noticed is her interest veered towards more engineer products and more, of an engineer mind. So I base her schooling around that. And I'll actually pull in my husband to kind of get some ideas for her type of learning style. And the other thing that she picks up on, and this would be my middle girl, Sedona, she loves drawing. So what I allow her to do is once she's finished her curriculum that she needs to, she can go on Kids Art Hub on YouTube and watch how to draw from, different things. She could pick whatever it is. And a lot of times if we're studying about a geographic location and we're learning about animals, then we'll tie it into animal science. They get to choose their animals. They get to choose what they want to learn. Then I incorporate that into, for her, it's a drawing activity. For my daughter, it's writing. She wrote her very first book last year. And even though she's weak at writing, she got excited about it. And it was because it was her creation. She really got behind it. And now she loves to spell everything out. And she doesn't get upset when she gets it wrong. Now she comes to me, she tries first, which is super important that she tries. We talk about the different grammatical rules, and then I help her and I guide her through the correct answers. And that's how she learns. And it's, so a little bit of it's guided learning, but they teach me what they want to learn, and I work the plan accordingly to that. And that's been really great so far. So
that is amazing. They teach you what they want to learn.
yes.
Wow, that is so coachable. I love that. And as I'm listening to you talk, I'm just thinking about one of my favorite quotes from Einstein is, if you, if you force a fish to climb the tree, the fish will spend her entire life thinking I'm stupid, something like that.
Yes, I know. Yes.
When you think about our school environment, pretty much we're forcing all the elephants, fishes, cats, dogs to climb a tree. And it so doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Right.
And another point you mentioned earlier is financial literacy. And right now I'm actually writing an article and talking about parents big concerns in terms of their children's future readiness, and financial literacy comes up again and again. So I just love how from very simple things, the younger one is already getting involved and cultivating their like financial literacy. That is pretty remarkable.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I think, and I agree, it's a topic that even between married couples and everything, it's a touchy subject. And I think because it's not taught a lot, and traditionally, I know my parents' finances were almost like a taboo. Like you didn't talk about it. It wasn't mentioned. And we're very transparent. We tell our kids if we're struggling. We tell them the budget that we have, why we're on a budget. And just the other day, I treated them. I set aside a budget and I didn't tell them. And I took them out to a place, their favorite place to eat. And we stopped in the parking lot and I pulled up and two of them got out of their seatbelts and they said, "Mom, you didn't have to do this. We know it's not in the budget." And that right there, just like I was beaming inside because I knew I was like, I'm doing something right. They understand the importance. And I explained to them that I had a contingency budget for this special day, but you are right. Normally, if I were just to do this on random and not prepare for it, then it would not be in the budget and we couldn't do it. So that them saying that just kind of solidifies the fact that they're understanding and they're grasping what we're telling them.
Amen.
Yeah. And so that's nice because there's days where you think that your kids just aren't paying attention. And I think every parent feels that way. And I would say just be cautious because they are. They really are, even if they're not showing it. They're very brilliant.
Oh, amen. I recently watched another TED Talk, and the very first factor, so this woman raised a very successful children. Her very first principle is trust. Yeah. And so many of us, we don't really trust our kids, especially in the school environment. We don't really trust the kids, especially after teaching for so many years. You become so skeptical and you just don't trust. Like imagine if we really trust our children and they are probably going to go above and beyond to meet that trust. So I really like this. So did you notice any kind of like differences between your own children and like kind of their traditional friends who go to a school? Like anything you notice kind of different?
Sure. There are a lot of difference. I know a lot of people worry, and my mom and my parents, because we are the first in our family to homeschool. So this is very different. It's not like we come from a long line of homeschooling or anything like that. So the very first question was, how are they going to socialize? That was a big concern. And they thought that our kids would be different in the fact that they wouldn't know how to speak to people. But what I say to that, the huge difference is that my children are not afraid to go up to an adult and complete a transaction, make a sale, have a conversation, shake someone's hand. They know stranger danger, but they are also very aware of how to carry on a professional conversation and how to keep a conversation going. And I think that's where some children have a difficult time. So I know that you said you had interviewed a guest and he's teaching people, or he's teaching kids specifically on this subject. And I think that's crucial because they are missing that component. And you need that whether you're going to have your own business or just, work related anyways. There's a lot of people who don't know how to communicate. And I feel like they didn't get that at a young age and they didn't set those foundations. So I would say that the advantage of what we're doing, one of the advantages is that they get a strong, solid foundation in how to socialize and how to conduct themselves in front of others. So, yeah.
Makes so much sense. When you, again, going back to the traditional school environment, most children only hang out with their peers, people of the same age. That's how they get to practice a lot. And when you put them in a mixed age environment, they're like, oh my God, what to talk? I see that all the time. Many of my students, they have no social skills. They don't know how to talk. It is so sad to see. Think about how many public speaking classes. I bet they took so many classes, but they never had a chance to really practice. And so I love this. And so here's a question from Julie. Thank you for joining us live. And she asked, and what is, if you can share the process of downsizing, like kind of shrinking, and how do you simplify and how do you eliminate belongings that your children they love? I'm sure there are things, that's my favorite stuff. I don't want to get rid of, or maybe there's something, an artwork I did 5 years ago I don't want to get rid of. So how do you do that? How do you do what's the elimination process?
That's such a great question. Thank you for that question, because this is a huge one. So before we moved out of our house, what we started doing is, and it all starts up here, it's all your mindset. You train your mind first before you get rid of anything. And you really take an inventory and you get a spreadsheet and you start taking inventory and paying attention to, sort of like if you've ever done an eating journal, take an inventory journal. What are you actually using? What are you wearing in your closet? What don't you wear? And then set it aside. Don't get rid of it yet. Just set it aside and see if you truly need it. If you don't use it within that week, chances are you're not going to need it. You can part without it. So that's how we started. We started with the mindset. We did an inventory, and then we started eliminating and started giving away to families who are well deserving. So for those tangible items that may have been a little difficult to part with, if we knew it was going somewhere that was going to help someone, it's a lot easier to part with. And then you know it's going to be cared for. And I'll give you a prime example. We had this huge 12-foot farmhouse table that my husband built for me. I loved it. And there, as you can imagine, there's a lot of memories. And as you can imagine, that can't fit on a bus. So not unless everyone's going to sleep on it. So for me, that was the hardest thing out of everything we've done to get rid of. And it went to a family who goes to the mountains every year, and they have a family dinner. And they were looking for that family table. And so when that happened, it was a lot easier for me to give up. And for my children, for the pictures and the artwork and things like that, what we do is we allow them to create all sorts of artwork. Then we take a picture of it. And so they hold their picture, and then we're able to just put it on a slideshow. And then we get rid of that physical copy. We let them keep 2. So they each get 2 each. And sometimes they'll rotate it through, or they'll hang on to one for several months. And that's their way of understanding how to part with the tangible items. And we also eliminated a room by room by room, month by month by month, because this was a several month process that we were going through as we were waiting for the house to sell. And by the time we left the house, we had less than a month left, and we were confined to just the living room and 1 bathroom. So we had mentally prepared before we moved into the bus several months in advance. And that's kind of how we did it, just baby steps towards moving into the school bus at full time. So, yeah.
I mean, it makes so much sense. And even like the stuff I did collect, I put them in box. But when was the last time that I actually look at this piece of art? Never, seriously, never, ever.
Yeah.
Just like collecting dust, and it makes so much sense to me. And so Desmond, thank you for joining us. He asked, do you guys travel a lot to other states? So share with us some of the places, states that you guys have already traveled. How long have you been having this school bus?
Oh man, we bought it not last December, but December before. That'd be what, 2018. And it kind of sat there because we weren't ready yet. And then January of 2019 is when we began our build, our official gutted the seats and all of that. We, in our delirious minds, were thinking we would finish by March. And I know anybody who's in a schooling community or has ever done any type of conversion would laugh their heads off about right now, because we thought literally we'd be on the road that spring, traveling the country. And that did not happen because we ran into a bunch of things we weren't expecting. And that was okay. So the biggest thing we had to learn was patience along the way. So our traveling started later. It started actually in the autumn time of last year. And we just did the Southeast. So we went to places that we knew if we broke down, we had family nearby. That was a huge thing for us. And it was a good thing we did that, because the first time we took the bus out of state, there were some problems we had to get fixed. And luckily we had some diesel mechanics that we knew that could come on site. One of our air conditioners broke and it was still really warm. So we were able to stop at his family's house, my husband's house, and they were able to get an AC repairman out there and get it fixed before we went down to Florida. So we've been, to South Carolina and Georgia and Florida. And then next month, we're going back down there just to say hello to everybody, because we've got all the kinks worked out. And this spring is when we're going to actually take it out west. And again, we've made some connections. So I have family out there. So if something happens and I've got somebody out in Colorado that could, we could kind of stay there. Because sometimes in this community, when you have something that breaks down on a bus like that, it's expensive to fix. So you have to have a contingency fund and you have to be ready for it. So our travel plans for this year are to go to Texas and Colorado and Wyoming and Washington. And then later in the year, we plan to hit Kentucky and Tennessee and spend some time in the mountains too. And then we'll look at our plans for the following year and group some states together and do it batches at a time, little bits at a time. So
wow. That is so incredible. So incredible. Like you haven't even had the bus for that long, have already been like going to all those places. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it's really neat. I mean, I would say even for those who aren't sure about the idea, the best way to kind of test it out is to go rent an RV or go rent a camper and go visit your state parks or your national parks, because in your own state or in your own country, wherever region you're coming from, there's so much to be discovered. So you don't necessarily have to go thousands of miles to discover how beautiful our world is. And even though there's so much crazy going on with all the natural disasters taking place, there's still a lot of beauty to be appreciated. And you can do that simply by looking around and doing a little bit of research of what you can take as, even if it's a one-day family trip. I encourage people to kind of get out there and do that and push yourself out of your comfort zone.
Totally. And as a family, you guys are creating so much memory for the children. I remember there's a very famous quote, which is people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you make them feel.
Yeah.
So that feeling, like when you are traveling, when you are experiencing things, and that feeling, I'm sure their emotion is being evoked, and they will remember those things. And this is so good. So like you are a busy mom, clearly. And you guys also, how many dogs do you guys have?
We have four. Four, and they are
You
not
just make
little.
me feel so incapable. Seriously,
Oh,
I'm like, we have only one cat, which is so easy, and two kids. But
Uh,
anyway, so I love it. So you also have your own company, and your husband also has so many things, businesses. So as a family, you and your husband of being entrepreneurs and homeschooling so many children on a school bus, like how do you manage everything? Like how do you manage everything? And like share with us. And to me, this is a big puzzle.
Yes, I think that if you simplify your lifestyle and you get rid of the noise and the distraction, you'd be surprised, and you would surprise yourself at how much you can get done in any given day, whether you have one kid, 10 kids, I don't care if you don't have any kids. The biggest thing for us, and we started this years ago, is we got rid of credit cards because we are on Financial Peace University right now. So it's been over 7 years. What that means is you can't go and entertain yourself somewhere and distract yourself from responsibilities. That was our first big step. And this is before we opened up our business. The other thing that we have done is we sacrifice certain things to be able to have this type of lifestyle. So we don't watch TV. The only TV that we ever watch is if it's educational, or during our bus build. Oh, we watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to do this, or we ran into this problem. Absolutely. But again, we were learning something. So we don't have a favorite TV show. I used to be a huge NFL fan. I don't have time for that now. And now, although I appreciate the sport and the camaraderie that it can bring for people, and it's great, people have to have their leisure time. What we noticed is that a lot of our time was wasted on our favorite TV shows. So that was a big one. Getting rid of that, axing that out, freed up a lot of time. The other thing is making a habit of either staying up a little bit later or getting up earlier, sometimes a combination of the two, especially when we were in school, we were getting our degrees. We had to kind of combine that because we had very young kids. I was in labor typing up my last capstone project. My husband thought I was nuts, but I had to, you just do what you have to do. And then we do have downtime. So Sundays for us are like a no work day. We, enjoy family time. If we want to fix something on the bus, we do, but we don't go to the office. He doesn't take any calls for any of his businesses and the other business he works for. And we enjoy the outdoors, or if we want to watch a movie, then that's when we do it. But we got rid of all the distraction. And same thing with social media. We kind of set alarms on our phones to keep us on track, because it's very easy to get a notification and then find yourself scrolling. And I think all of us have been guilty of it. Yeah. So that's been a big adjustment in learning that as entrepreneurs, you don't have time for that. You have to be strategic about what you're doing at all times. And then that frees up your calendar to allow yourself to reach your goals that you want to reach. Because anybody who says they can't do it, I don't have time. I say it's just, you do have time, but you're not ready yet. And you either don't have the confidence to do it, or you haven't pushed hard enough. And so I encourage people to push themselves a little bit more.
Oh, this is so good. Because one time I listened to a podcast episode, and this person was talking about how to be smart with our time. So she actually recommended to create like a timetable. Every time when you do something, write it down. And eventually, by the end of the day, you will see and do a self-evaluation, see how
Yep.
much time you actually wasted.
Yes.
And I didn't do that regularly, but I did it once. I was like, wow, that was like an eye-opening experience for myself. I recommend everyone do the same. I think the busier you become, you just have to be smarter with the time that you do have.
Yes, definitely. Time blocking was difficult for me because I never did that before. And I think because where I traditionally came from, I used to be a nurse prior to all this, and you worked for 12 hours. And so you just did what you had to do. So learning how to time block and change mindset specifically and really just drop it, whether it was done or not, and force yourself to move forward so you can do what you need to do for your next projects. My husband is a lot better at it than I am. And so that's still a work in progress for me. And I think if you understand that, life in general and all these skills that you're learning, that you're a student as well as a teacher. So if you ever were thinking about homeschooling, you have to have the mindset of you're learning along with whomever you're homeschooling, or you're learning this process, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to have it perfect. And I think because people are seeking perfection, they don't act on it right away. And I know that was my biggest wall too. So I had to get over that. I had to learn how to time block. And when I started doing that, I started seeing things moving a lot faster and things were more productive. Yeah.
So true. So many people approach me, ask me coaching, live streaming. I think the perfect moment for you to start a show will never ever come. You just have to take action and slowly.
Yeah.
And that's how we move closer to perfection, is through taking actions. So being like your children, like watching mommy and daddies, like no TV, working so hard. So how has that, observing their own parents affected their own attitude, like to life or learning? So share that with us.
Sure. We have this thing called a cell phone cookie jar. and what we noticed as entrepreneurs and moving forward and everything is that screen time for us, from our kids' perspective, is like, wow, you're on your screen a lot, mom and dad. And what they don't understand is like, we're working. Mm-hmm. And so I had to kind of start including them on some of those posts and things like that. And then their mindset kind of shifted, but it also forced us to physically put the items away and set those time blocks and get them in stone. And the kids learn from that. So we learn from them how important it is to give them attention, because I feel really bad for kids nowadays. They're fighting for parents' attention. They're fighting for whomever is watching over them for attention. And I don't think a lot of us ignore it because we're so busy in our world of, I got to get this email out. I got to make this meeting. I have to do A through Z. And we're not realizing that just because we're not playing a game or we're not, watching a TV show, we're still making ourselves unavailable for our kids, and that impacts them a great deal. So for us, it's important that we have a good, healthy balance there. And, they get to watch Disney shows that we have already filtered through, or certain shows that we allow them to watch on their free time. But they also understand, oh my goodness, sorry. They also understand the importance of putting their devices away. And if they argue, the second they argue, it's gone. Like I have a no tolerance policy for that. So, they just got their iPads this year from their grandparents. Aww. And they know that the second that they argue, even if they're playing a game on there that's education related, because it's really all we have on there, I'll take it away and they'll go back to the traditional workbook, or I'll find another activity for them, because I don't want them to become dependent on it. And I want them to understand, and that kind of molds them into more responsible. And when they have an opportunity to kind of get sucked into that, they actually kind of get bored with it. And then they want to go outside, or they want to go discover something, or they want to go make a project or a craft, because they're very hands-on. And that's just kind of how we've raised them to be.
Yeah. Wow, this is really good. So I love this question. Desmond asked, how many hours a day do they actually study? If you can.
That's a really good question. It varies, Desmond, a lot. So there will be days where we're studying for about 7 hours, but not straight, so I'll break it up. And it really depends on the topic that we are discussing. And then there are days where they're only doing about a 3-hour study period. Mm-hmm. And there's days during the week that they don't study, but then on the weekend, we make up for that. And I think that's partly because of our business being infused with their homeschooling. Because when our customer orders come in, I bring them into the office. They fill the orders with me. And I take that opportunity to teach them a subject. So if they're learning about math, we take a little bit more time and we go over some of the math problems. And then, I'll finish the rest of the orders and then I have them working on something else. And so that's where the hours do vary. When I did try the structure, it just, that structured 7 hours a day for 5 days a week, what I noticed is that they didn't respond well to it. Even my most studious one that loves workbooks, even she got tired of that. And I noticed very quickly that just was not going to work. So I needed to be okay with modifying the hours each day and getting them at their prime interest time too, because kids will let you know. I mean, they're very transparent. They're very blunt. They let you know, if you pay attention, what they want to learn. And there's certain things that are no tolerance that yes, they have to learn certain foundations. And that's where we come in and say, no, you need to do a little bit more of this math or this writing skill. You need to do a little bit more reading. But for everything else, if I notice that my 3-year-old or my 4-year-old is kind of losing interest in something, I'll move on to a different subject or we'll revisit it. So we'll stop the lesson there, we'll go play outside, and we'll come back and pick up like an hour or two later, and we'll do another 45 minutes. And then I have their attention, and then they're focused and they remember better what we're studying. So that has been a huge eye-opener for me when I first started.
Well, I love this as I'm listening to you sharing your story, and I'm just thinking about all those children. Like we are like kind of forcing them to be in the classroom all day long, learning this, learning that. We don't really give them a break, very very short break, and
Yeah.
the time we spend on outdoor play, recess, physical education is shrinking. Like
Yes.
no wonder by the end of the day they have so much emotion oppressed. No wonder by the end of the day they feel so bored. They're not interested in going to school. And I love what you shared, Tressa, like how you get them involved in business. So I want to learn more about this. I think a big part to make this work is to integrate what your children are learning and doing into your own business, right? And
Yeah.
so it's almost like a mini school for them, a mini MBA. So share with us, what are their responsibilities, and to what extent and in what aspects that you get your own children involved in doing this? What's their attitude, some of the learning outcomes? So share this with us.
Sure. So it varies by age. So my 2-year-old can handle stickers. So she puts the warning labels on the bottom of our candles that we manufacture. And that's a big deal for her. So she knows that she has to get in the middle of the vessel, and we had to train her on that. But what kid doesn't like putting stickers on something? So that keeps her occupied. When she's occupied with that, I work with my older ones to set up trays, because we do candle making workshops and we teach people. They come in and we pour candles with them. So now, like, the older kids are learning how to set up presentation wise all of the items that, go with this manufacturing for people to manufacture their own candles. And they understand the importance of presentation, of cleanliness, making sure we're cleaning up after ourselves, resetting things. And then for my 2 middle ones, we do math, simple math. So I'll tell them, go count out 12 vessels, because we have a party of 12 coming tonight. And tell me, if we batch them together, if we do how many sets of this and that, that's multiplication. So I'm starting to show them multiplication factors, even though they're young, because they have a physical product that they can see and they understand it. And when I went through math, I didn't have that. So I was strong in algebra, but I still didn't understand. Like when I got into geometry, I was horrible at it. And I think that's the reason why, is because I did not have in front of me, I'm a very visual learner, a practical application. And whereas like my husband is great because he learned how to build. And so there's all sorts of geometry going on in there. And, there's some algebra, but that was his strong suit because he learned how to build from a very young age. And so for the kids, anything that we're doing, we're including learning in there. And then my 2 oldest are now learning how to pour their own, the candles, because we deal with hot wax. So we don't let the young ones touch it. But the 2 oldest now are learning, and it's kind of like a mini apprenticeship program for them. We do pay them. So they do earn their money. Yeah, they earn their money. So when we get paid, they get paid. Only if they do their job. So yesterday we came in and only 1 out of the 4 did their job. So only 1 of them got paid today. Now today, they're all in there working like crazy because they want their money. So they know if they don't work, they don't get paid. Just like in real life, you don't show up, you don't get paid. So yeah. So that's
it's good that you have a team of so many kids, right?
Yes.
You can like kind of watch each other. There's a little bit team pressure, peer pressure. Wow. So do you give each of them like a bank account, a credit card or something, so they
Um,
can kind of look at how, like, do their own balance, things like that? No.
so I wish that the banks would work more closely with younger children and
Mm.
not limit that. So we do it, yes, on our own, but I try to get them affiliated with a bank. They come in with me all the time to make the deposits and everything, but they're too young. They're too young to start their accounts. And that's just so crazy to me because I'm going like, come on, they need to learn this. So we have an envelope system for them, and they have a give, a save, and a spend envelope system. So they know that when they earn money, the first thing they have to do is give. They have to tithe. The second thing they have to do is put in for savings. And it could be, our youngest one, I don't know what she's saving for, a piece of candy, but my oldest one's, the first thing that she saved for was a spa day for herself, and she paid for it on her own by her savings. Yes. Yes. I mean, we're talking
Oh
like,
my God, this is crazy. I
yes.
love this.
Yes. And now my oldest is saving for his car, and he's 11. So I think that's great. And then they have spending money. So they get an immediate reward for what they're doing. Now, because we live in a confined space, they do know there are limitations to what they can and cannot buy. It has to be small. It has to be something practical. And a lot of times they choose to spend it on experiences instead, or they'll save more for an experience. So,
I
yeah.
love that. I love that. Just on that note, I just interviewed a mom this morning, and her children are all older. So she
Mhm.
asked her kids, what are something you remembered from like early years from the childhood? And she told me the only thing her kids remembered were experiences like traveling,
Yes.
trips, not Christmas gift, not stuff, but
Nope.
experiences, a trip to there, a trip to there. So it's really fascinating. And that belongs to us, right? There's that emotional component.
Yeah,
Wow.
there's so much impact that I can think. I was fortunate that my father was in the military, so I traveled a lot. I did get those experiences from a military family standpoint of having to move around. So by the time I hit ninth grade, I had been to 9 different schools and moved all over. And whereas my kids, my husband is a veteran also, but they were born afterwards. So they didn't get that experience until we started traveling in the bus. And those are things that as we're learning, history was a weak subject for me. And I tell the kids, I am learning just as much as you are right now, because this is something that I just did not have interest in. And I got bored very quickly, and I struggled with because I didn't have a practical application. And now we can go travel to whatever historic site we want to learn
I know,
about. And it's a
amen.
huge impact, and it's an experience. So,
Yeah, it's almost like common sense when you think about it. The best way to learn a language is to actually go to this country to learn the language.
yes, yes.
I think for so many different subject matters, it is the same, especially in terms of business. So they are receiving the best education in my mind, that they are doing this, making mistakes, and being like rewarded. So I love this. I remember last year, you and I, when we first connected, we had a conversation, and you told me you guys were thinking about doing some Entrepreneurship Academy or something.
Yes.
So share that idea more with us.
Sure. So the last 2 years that we have done, we actually partnered with Acton Children's Business Fair. So you can actually look that up. They're a worldwide organization. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to encourage kids who had an entrepreneur mindset to set up their own businesses and sell to the general public. And we thought it was such a great idea that the first thing we did was we entered our kids into the Raleigh location where we live. And we didn't get in because they had such a long waiting list of kids wanting to do the same thing. And we were disappointed. So I thought, okay, well, what can we do? We reached out and we found out we could start our own community of this children's business fair. And this is a once a year thing for them. But for me, what I saw going through this process, and when we held the first children's business fair of the year, and we had about 11 kid vendors, and some of them were legal businesses, and some of them it was an idea that they had and they just wanted to make some cash. But I can tell you, every single one of them sold out, which was amazing. And they learned a lot, and their parents were shocked by their abilities because we didn't allow the parents to sell for them. They had to be there, but the kids had to do the selling. And so they had to learn how to interact with people. And it was very interesting to see the parents just watch their kids in awe and see how able they were to do things. So some things we did notice that they missed is that they didn't get education as far as how to create a business plan, how to set up your business if you want to take it further. There were just some key components that weren't part of the business fair that we really want to go in detail with. So our thought process, and by our, I mean me and my husband, we want to create an Entrepreneur Academy online for kids to where we can develop these courses that they can take, and they can take them on a webinar, or they can take them in person and do a merge of the two, and then have more than just one business fair a year. I'd really like to see it be a quarterly business fair and turn it into something big, and fill in those gaps that so many parents feel like when they sign their kids up for this, then they've had the fair and that's it. And they don't hear anything else about it until the following year. So that's something where we see a need and there's a demand for it. And that's where we want to take this year to really build out that program and then hit it hard for the following year, because we want to do it right. And we're not going to get it right 100%. But what we do want to do is provide value to the parents. And I've interviewed quite a few of them and taken notes about what are they looking for if we were to build this type of program out. And so that's our next venture, because it's really my passion project, is to really help develop, our young generation, because there's such a need. And they need to know that they're believed in. And with all of the advances in technology, they need to know the importance of pushing forward, self-accountability, and going for their dreams. And they're not going to do it. They could have all the tools in the world, but if they don't have the support behind them from people who love them or who are mentoring them, then chances are it will not happen. And what better way to get them than when they're young? Because when you're young, you take more risks because you're less afraid. And as you get older, you get a little bit more scared about those things. And it's a little bit more difficult for you to take those risks, versus kids are more go, go, go. So
Yeah, I love this. So you mentioned that for the fair that you did, there were 11 vendors. So I'm just curious about their business ideas. What were they selling? So share some with us.
Sure. So the first year that we had a Cam's Cookies that came in, and he came in and joined us this past year too. So we had returning vendors. We had some people do books. We had one that did handmade guitars, and he actually landed a partnership with the place that we had it hosted at. So that turned into a huge thing for him. Yep. For those of you who shop at Whole Foods, you may see Michaela and the Bees Sweet Lemonade. She was also on Shark Tank. She started with the Acton Children's Business Fair. That's how she got her start, and just a lemonade stand and doing these children's business fairs. And it grew and grew and grew and grew. Then she ended up on Shark Tank, and now she's in hundreds of Whole Foods stores selling her lemonade, which is just but we had a hot cocoa bar. My daughter did a hot cocoa bar, and we wouldn't allow them to do candles because it's something as a family business. They had to create their own thing. We had somebody do hand-turned pens. So he handmade all of his pens. We had some people write their own books and authors. We had people do dog treats, and they sold out of most of their products. A lot of them sold out completely. One of them finished within the first hour. It was amazing.
It's insane. This has given me so much hope, because to me, that is the best classroom. And so many students I work with, by the time they get to undergraduate, they have no idea what they are interested in doing, because I think school somehow just slowly, softly kills their passion, their interest, because we're forcing them to become this one-way thing, a cookie-cutter approach. So I just love how children are oh, this is something I'm passionate about, and now I'm being rewarded financially, and I'm the person who made this happen.
Yeah, and they understand. They understand.
It is incredible. Isn't that the essence of entrepreneurship? When I was in Singapore last year doing my very first immersion, I don't even know how many times I cried, because I see this is something I'm passionate about. Now I made this happen. It's wow. Imagine our children have that feeling. That is a strong incentive for them to learn, right? Passion for learning, passion for life, give them the real life experience. Oh my God, I love this. I love this. This is so, so, so good. This is so amazing. So the company is called Acting Children. Is that right?
Yes. So for everybody who is listening, and if you have children, you know somebody who'd be interested in this, I want you to look up Acton Children's Business Fair, and it will pull up. They're all over the world. They're all over the United States. So there's probably a local chapter in your area, and you will see previous businesses that they've done. Now, if you look it up and you cannot find them, and they're based out west somewhere, I can't remember the exact state that it started in, But if you look it up, that's ACTON, Children's Business Fair. It's actually from an academy, and then they turned it into an academy, and it's actually from a college too. And if you do not have a location there that somebody has started, reach out to them, and then you can easily be that leader in your community and begin the Children's Business Fair. And what's great about going through them, like with the first year we started out, is that they have the website set up for you. They'll post your date. They do the advertising most of the time for you on a larger scale, and then you take care of like more of the community involvement in recruiting those students. So that's always nice to have.
I'll do a quick screen share. So
Yeah.
this is the one, right?
There you go. Yes, right there. Yes. Look through those videos, see how they got started, and look for your country or your state. And if you don't have it, reach out to them. Look at how many fairs that is. Isn't that crazy?
Oh my God.
Yes. It is such a great resource, and it's such great inspiration to watch these young children and teenagers start their businesses and be successful in them. And like I said, some of them have been on Shark Tank and have landed deals with the sharks, which is crazy. But I love it. I love everything about it. And they were the reason why we started. So even though we've broken away because we want to do, a little bit of a different concept in terms of continued education through it, I think that what they're doing is amazing. And if it weren't for their initial start, then we wouldn't have had the idea, even though we were on a small scale for our kids, doing basically what we want to build out, is that we couldn't serve on a greater level. So this really kind of took it to a whole new level. And we were able to say, we don't just have to do this just for our kids. Like, why are we being selfish with this? Why not help other children reach their goals? So
this is so incredible. And there's so many things I love about this story. And I think what made me, I almost cried, is to really see the passion in the students' eyes. One important reason I resigned last year was like my students, they hated learning, they hate their life. There was no passion in their eyes. They're so lost every single semester. My students who came to me, Dr. I'm so lost in life. I don't know what to do. And just seeing the passion, listening to your story, like your own children, and seeing the passion in those children, just made me feel like teary again. And just like, wow, this is something that we should provide our children. Learning is fun. Learning is enjoyable, right?
Yes, it is. And I would say for people who are not ready, you don't have to be an entrepreneur to do this. And your kids can stay in traditional school. I challenge you to take one subject and teach your kids. Because you have to understand that there's great value for the teachers and professors out there trying their hardest with the resources that they're given. And each year those resources are declining year after year. And that's really hard. And their students are increasing in number. So they have a lot of pressure. So we have to remember as parents or as guardians that it is not just their sole responsibility to educate and promote the passion in our children. It's our responsibility too. We need to take accountability, and we need to step up to the plate and make that happen, and make it a team collaboration, and push for the schools to start teaching like finance courses and things that are going to renew, that spirit. Get an Entrepreneur Academy on board with your local school that your children go to. And you'd be surprised that I bet a lot of the teachers will be on board. They're rooting in the background. They're like, please let's make this happen, because they're hurting out there. And my heart goes out to them because I see the struggles. We have a lot of friends who are teachers, and I know it's hard for them. So we never want to down talk or make them feel like what they're doing is not important. What they're doing is huge. But we need to help them, and we need to come together.
Resources. So yeah. I so agree. So oh my God, an hour almost. And let me share. So everyone, share with us, Tressa, where they can people already asking, we need here. We need a tour. We need a tour of the bus. It is coming. Yes. It is coming. It is coming.
It is.
And so make sure you guys can at least follow them on
there Instagram. You go. Yes, follow us on
I see I'm not lying, right? So there is their bus.
Look at our dogs. That's 4 out of our 5 kids there in front of the bus. You'll see a bunch of different pictures. We are on Facebook too. So we have, if you follow Chase the Bus on Facebook, you'll see the videos of our builds when we first started. You could go back and watch all of those, and we pop on live and tell you what we're doing for each project. And on there, we'll do a live video tour. And then my husband is working on the YouTube channel. I know it's been a big one that a lot of people have asked about. And for us, that truly just needs to be a time that we lock down and say, okay, we're going to upload these on on YouTube because we have the content for it. We just need to do it. Yeah, that's our two pastors merged together. That's in the middle where we just all want to hang out as a family. And we've got a big projector and we watch family movies together when we do have our family movie night. So
this is so sweet. It's so amazing now, like with social media, talking about digital literacy. Like I love how you are also showing your children how they can use social media to create, to share story, to create a movement, to inspire others. Not just like always playing games or watching like this and that have nothing to do with their life, but really using this intentionally, strategically. So I think, Tressa, you are my role model. So this is amazing. This is really amazing. Yeah, I love this. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live. So any parting piece of advice you want to share with the parents who are entrepreneurs or educators who are thinking about adopting a similar lifestyle, maybe not on school bus, but
maybe not that crazy.
But but homeschooling, like any parting piece of advice you want to share with our viewers and people who join us live or watching the replay?
Yes, absolutely. I say start with your mindset, encourage yourself, create a vision board of what you want to do, and start from there and take it step by step. And remember, you don't have to make a huge leap and go crazy like we did and jump on a school bus with all the dogs and the kids. But what you can do is start little and pick one subject that you really just want to shine bright on, or one thing that you want to get rid of, and work towards that. And because you can do it, and take accountability and believe in yourself. And if you don't have the strength to believe in yourself, surround yourself around people who will believe in you until you get the confidence to get there, because you will get there. You will get there. So keep going, surround yourself with positive people, and make yourself self-accountable. Because if you do those things, I promise you, you will be successful and you will get to where you want to go. Absolutely.
Well, I love this. What a great way to end the show. And thank you so much again. I have their Instagram handle there. Please do follow them. And thank you so much, everyone who joined us live.
Thank you.
And next Friday, the same time, I have another amazing guest to come. And he spent his entire life studying change, how we can facilitate change, leverage change. He's a Forbes Council member and written books, talks. So I'm really excited to have him on the show and share with us how we can, this is, to me, is a big change, from a traditional home to a school bus. And how we can navigate through change and leverage it to become a better, stronger, more resilient person. So thank you again, everyone. And thank you again, Miss Tressa.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed this. Thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah. Have a great weekend, everyone. See you next week. Bye.
Bye, guys.